Sometimes it's not that you stopped loving yourself, it's just that you got used to seeing yourself through other people's eyes. Since you were young, you were taught your worth came from your appearance, your ability to care for others, your constant availability. You became everything for everyone except what you truly needed. And now, in this stage where your body is changing and your hormones seem to play by their own rules, many women feel like something's been lost. But what's really happening is that something is waking up. No one really talks about it openly, but there's a quiet kind of grief in this process. The grief for the woman you used to be. The one who pushed herself to the point of exhaustion, the one who thought she had to be liked to feel valid. And in that silence, something begins to stir, a quiet revolution. Because this isn't the end of your attractiveness, your desire, or your power. It's the beginning of a reunion. And that reunion is with the woman you are now, the one who's no longer willing to stay silent about what bothers her or to keep suppressing what stirs inside. What hardly anyone mentions is how many women go through this stage feeling invisible, as if they're no longer desirable, as if their voice has lost weight. But you know what? That's simply not true. It's not that you've lost your spark, you're just surrounded by broken mirrors that can't reflect your real worth. Rebuilding your self-esteem doesn't mean seeing yourself the way you used to. It means looking at yourself now, with stretch marks, with grays, with changes, and still saying, I'm here, wiser, freer, and more myself than ever. Because true feminine power isn't about staying young forever. It's about daring to be real, and that can be scary. When you stop putting on makeup out of obligation, when you stop faking orgasms, when you finally start setting boundaries, you shake things up. But in that shake-up, you get free. Real self-esteem doesn't come from being liked by others. It's born the moment you stop betraying yourself. And though it's not easy, it's deeply liberating. We also need to talk about the body. How many times have you looked at it with anger, sadness, or disappointment? But what if you looked at it with gratitude instead? Not as something to please others, but as your home. The place that's held your emotions, your struggles, your joys. Maybe you don't have the waist you had at 20, but you carry the strength of a woman who's survived 1,000 sacrifices and is still standing. Doesn't that deserve admiration? There are days you don't recognize yourself. When your skin feels foreign, your desire feels asleep, and the mirror doesn't show what you hoped. On those days, more than ever, you need to speak to yourself with kindness. To remind yourself that your worth isn't tied to how you look, but to everything you've lived through, that your body isn't broken, it's evolving, and that you're not losing your power, you're reshaping it. And yes, it's time to talk about desire, because desire doesn't vanish, it just changes form. Maybe what turns you on now is different. Maybe you need a different pace, a deeper connection, and that's perfectly fine. What isn't fine is giving up on pleasure, as if it was some luxury from the past. Your pleasure matters. Your desire matters. Exploring your body again, reconnecting with what you feel, discovering what makes you come alive. It's one of the most powerful ways to rebuild your self-worth from the inside out. This stage also brings an opportunity, the chance to finally listen to yourself. What do you enjoy? What will you no longer put up with? What lights you up? What drains you? These aren't just philosophical questions. They're urgent ones. Because every time you choose yourself, every time you say no to what hurts and yes to what nourishes you, your power comes back together piece by piece from deep within. And speaking of nourishment, I'm not just talking about food. I mean the conversations you choose, the spaces you inhabit, the relationships around you. Sometimes your self-esteem wobbles, not because you're broken, but because you've spent too long surrounded by people who can't really see you, who dismiss your emotions, or who believe you've already had your prime. You're not past anything. You're exactly where you need to be, and you deserve to be surrounded by those who remind you of your worth, not those who question it. There's another massive taboo we need to talk about: anger. Yes, that same anger you've swallowed countless times just to avoid being called hysterical or too much. But anger has its own kind of wisdom. Often beneath it there's sadness, there's exhaustion, there's a voice desperately trying to be heard. This isn't about walking around furious all the time. It's about giving yourself permission to feel without guilt. Because when you validate what you feel, you're also validating who you are. And that's a huge act of self-love, even if the world doesn't get it. And let's not forget the mirror. How many times have you avoided it, or only looked into it to find flaws that needed fixing? But the mirror can be an ally too. Instead of looking for what's missing, start recognizing what's still there. The depth of your gaze, the way your hands show tenderness, the lines that tell your story. Don't wear makeup to hide, wear it to play. Don't dress to conceal, dress to express. Because the woman who dares to be seen without filters reclaims a power that can't be bought, the power of being real. Many women discover in this stage that they've lived decades disconnected from themselves, living for others, postponing dreams, saying yes when they really wanted to say no. And now, with every hot flush, with every sleepless night, the body screams, it's time to prioritize you. And sometimes that scream comes wrapped in guilt, because we're not used to putting ourselves first. But it's necessary, because if you don't choose yourself, no one else will. And speaking of choosing yourself, rebuilding your self-esteem also means doing things just for the sheer joy of it. Dancing for no reason, learning something new without the pressure of being good at it, painting, singing, writing, wandering aimlessly. Creativity isn't just for the young or for the artists. It's a way to reconnect with your inner child, with the wild woman inside, with that part of you that doesn't need permission to enjoy herself. And you know what else is part of feminine power? Vulnerability. Yes, showing up exactly as you are, without faking your emotions, without pretending to have it all figured out. Because the woman who allows herself to be vulnerable also allows herself to receive support, affection, comfort. And that doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger. Because there's no greater strength than admitting you don't have to do it all alone. Self-esteem is also nourished by small, brave decisions, like starting to speak to yourself with respect, like stopping the habit of comparing yourself to others, like forgiving yourself for the times you didn't know how to look after yourself better, like choosing which messages are allowed into your mind. You don't need perfect Instagram bodies telling you how you should be. You need real reminders of who you already are. Enough, valuable, one of a kind. There's a certain magic in this stage that rarely gets talked about, the magic of living with more awareness. You're no longer up for wasting time on things that don't feel right. You no longer tolerate relationships that drain you. You're not chasing validation in every look or every word, because bit by bit that inner voice, the one that had been sleeping for years, starts speaking up, louder and clearer. And once you truly listen, there's no going back. So if you ever feel like you've lost something, remember this: you haven't lost your power. You were just looking for it in the wrong places. Your power has always been there, patiently waiting for you to claim it, without fear, without shame, without taboos. This isn't about becoming who you used to be, it's about celebrating who you are today, with all your history, with all your truth, with all your beauty. And if you've made it this far, I want you to know, your path isn't less valid just because it looks different. Your way of healing is perfect exactly as it is. And every single step you take towards yourself, no matter how small, is an act of rebellion. So walk at your own pace, but keep going. Because when a woman rebuilds her self-esteem, she doesn't just change herself, she transforms everything she touches.